Good morning, guys. This is just Keza from the earwax specialist, the clinical lead at the Birmingham Hearing Care Centre here in the West Midlands. This is a patient who's come in now, and this is a second visit. In the first instance, we moved a lot of the superficial wax that was in the outer and the middle portion of the ear canal, which left this very, very hard piece of wax, which at the previous appointment we just couldn't remove because it was causing a lot of discomfort for the patient, even upon touch or introduction of any sort of earwax removal tool into the cavity. So we've been softening it up, and it hasn't actually made a tremendous amount of difference. So I'm actually going in here with some Bart's hook just to try to ease it off the bony canal here. You can see it's almost adhered and sort of coagulated itself in place, and it is really, really tough and abrasive to the touch. Every time there was any sort of movement of this piece of dead skin, the patient was flinching, so you have to be incredibly careful. So this is me just going in with a Bart's hook and just trying to move some of the superficial layers off and away from the back of the ear. And you notice as soon as I sort of just penetrated or permeated that sort of piece of sort of dead skin underneath, there's this oozing infection that's been sitting there for a while, which has been causing the patient a great deal of discomfort. And we are working in the back of the ear canal here, so depth perception is super important. So you need to know where the eardrum is, and you can see just there, we've just exposed the first bit of the eardrum, just sat behind that oozing infection. So I'm just clearing it again away from the lateral parts of the bony canal in the back of the cavity here, and just trying my best to be as gentle as possible. So, we've got two problems here. One, we've got a lot of keratin which is adhered to the superior, inferior, and lateral walls of the canal. Number two, we've got this oozing infection. So all I'm trying to do is bring this piece away in one as best I can, which is proving to be a little bit on the difficult side, especially because it's sat right in the back of the ear, and it's a very, very sensitive part of the ear with a lot of touch, temperature, pain receptors. So now I'm picking away at this piece of wax from the inferior part of the canal, just trying to get that lift. But it's always very, very difficult to sort of get any sort of suction onto keratin like this sometimes, because especially when it is very, very dehydrated, you often find that it needs loosening with either olive oil or sodium bicarb before you get any sort of purchase. So I'm just trying to use both of those products sparingly and just trying to find an opening where I can actually get a good lift and start to get some movement from this piece of dead skin, which we just managed to get there. You can see it's starting to lift itself off that lateral canal wall now. So now I'm moving on to actually using a 2 ml Zollner just to try to sort of get a bit more movement from this piece of dead skin, and it is starting to sort of loosen away from the diameter of the cavity. So at this stage, you've got to be incredibly patient. Some of these pieces of dead skin are very, very abrasive, and the last thing you want them to be doing is causing sort of discomfort in the ear simply from the fact that they just grate along that sort of very, very fragile squamous membrane in the back of the ear. So again, you can tell usually when it sort of appears in this very rubbery, sticky manner that it's been there for a long time. So what you often find is because it's just trapped the layers of dead skin underneath from vacating themselves out of the ear, those layers just build up and then cause a subsequent infection behind the piece of keratin, which you're finding now. So you often find that the eardrum is still trying to radiate or is still trying to shed its skin, but unfortunately that skin's got nowhere to go. So it just builds up in the back of the ear. So we're taking little chunks away now, and again, just gently coaxing it out. We don't want to be too rough. And you can just tell from the general structure of the mass itself, the mass of dead skin, how dry it actually is inside the cavity. So I've got a good hold of it now. You can usually tell from the suction unit and the sort of change in the sound of the suction unit when you've got a good hold of any sort of debris inside the cavity, because the suction slowly starts to build up, and there we go, you see it's starting to work its way out of the cavity, and we've got it.